What's up, fish heads? Welcome back to Waterbox Live here on Wednesday evening. We appreciate you all tuning in, as always.
Yep, it's gonna be a fun hands-on episode, so we're excited.
Make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell.
Yep, we are giving away 2 $100 Waterbox gift cards today. So currency for that always is liking the stream, being active in the comments, make friends, chit chat, whatever. If you aren't active in the comments, they can't see that you're here watching, and choose a winner. So
I also want to say 57% of people that watch these live streams are not subscribed to the channel.
Ew.
So
what is wrong with y'all?
So look over to the, I don't know where it is on the screen, I think it's on the right side, and see if you're subscribed. And if you're subscribed, let us know you're subscribed. So just want to mention that.
You better hit that and get subscribed, because that's a high percentage.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today is, also drop some questions in the chat, because we're going to do some Q&A and pull some questions throughout the stream. But today is all about coral nutrition. So we are going to be actually feeding corals, talking about what kind of food, what corals use it, how to feed, different options, kind of going over the whole basics of coral feeding methods and, you know, all of that. So it's going to be fun. People love these kind of
if you guys haven't seen, we've done these in the past. They were always very popular. So we're like, let's throw this back in. Let's do the feeding corals again, specifically because we have the whole coral nutrition line from Waterbox now. So.
All right, I think we're gonna head on over to the marine next.
Jump on in.
Yeah.
Jump right into it.
And also, you guys, I encourage you to post your questions below. We'll do as many as we can towards the end. I might even, as Jess is feeding the tank, take questions, as long as I'm not interrupting her, which I like to do when she's doing this stuff. Right?
Huh? Yes, you can throw out questions, but I'm probably gonna be doing stuff all the time. But feel free to throw questions in. So we got the Marine X 110. We're gonna use, this is our example for feeding. I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there now, because I know when we do these before people have something to say, is that the amount of food I'm gonna put into this aquarium is not your standard amount of food that you're going to use for it.
Sorry.
Hang on. Restart.
Restart.
Hey, go ahead.
We have.
Oh, there's over here.
Yeah, switch over to me.
Oh, wait, I had to wait. Oh, there you go. That was good. Okay.
Technical difficulties. We're gonna redo.
We are back.
Hey, all right.
Talk about what you just talked about.
Yes, so we're going to be using the Marine X 110 here in the studio as our feeding example. But I'm going to put a disclaimer out there, because this is a demonstration. So the amount of food that I'm going to put into this aquarium is not a standard amount you do like per feeding. So I know we've kind of talked about this before, like when we do this, you're putting way more food in than you would on an average feeding day. So just take that in stride. So we're going to talk about a couple different methods of feeding, different types of coral food, and what it works best for. And I think the one that most people do regularly, or is the easiest one, kind of most common, would be broadcast feeding. So this is when you take it into the water column and it just kicks around to the aquarium, and everything just filter feeds from there. You're not target feeding any kind of corals on that. And I actually have to turn power back on. I didn't think about that. Pause. To show broadcast feeding. So you can do the broadcast feeding with your full system running. A lot of times it's better to shut down your return pump and skimmer, just so that it doesn't get pulled through the filter socks and your protein skimmer right away, and it's kind of just recirculates into the main display where your corals are. So on this one here, a common broadcast feeding food is phytoplankton. So phytoplankton is going to be your algae-based diet, and this is particularly good for soft corals and a lot of filter feeding invertebrates, but everything will filter feed this out of the water column. And it is super easy, because then, so we're running our Nero here. I'm gonna let it kind of close loop for that, but just to kind of show you, broadcast feeding, you are just putting it into the water, and all your coral naturally, even down to your soft corals that have really, really small feeding apparatus, is going to be able to filter feed this fine particles out of the water. And you'll even see usually corals will close up a little bit when you use something like this to broadcast feed. You can target feed this, but this tends to be a better choice just to broadcast feed. Phytoplankton is the algae base of your coral's diet.
Just as phyto-raise phosphates, Island Reef is asking.
Anything you feed will raise phosphates if you feed too much.
Okay.
So anything, fish food, coral food, is going to break down into a waste product. So, you know, overfeeding anything will elevate all of your levels here. So our phytoplankton, while it's based mostly with algae, it does have zooplankton in it as well. So it does kind of hit both the needs for filter feeding. If you're like, I don't want to target feed anything, you can just put in and filter feed. Most of your corals will do pretty good with filter feeding your stuff out of the water column without target feeding. But once you get past soft corals is when you need to do a lot more target feeding. So I'm going to turn the power head back off.
Shaka says those corals are huge now, so they obviously saw the tank.
Yes.
And Logan says, Waterbox, what's up? Lots of people joining us
The
today.
corals are super happy. So that's like a liquid diet. This is already pre-mixed. You don't have to mix it with anything. And this is going to be your kind of basic algae base. The next one is going to be coral superfood. So the coral superfood is a powder. Here, fine powder. And you don't want to feed it like this. So coral superfood is a mix of like amino acids and zooplankton, phytoplankton. Oh. Zoom in. So this is pretty much everything. Vitamins, amino acids, all of that your corals are going to need. Since it is a dry powder, put some into a cup. And you will need to mix this with your aquarium water before you feed it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of aquarium water in here, mix it in, and you just need to dissolve it into here.
Jess, I do want to mention that for those of you looking into the Waterbox coral nutrition products, you're not sure which one to get, we do have a coral nutrition bundle.
Yes, so
you can-
every one of these is important
Yeah.
to your corals. So now in this form, it is technically one that you can use for broadcast feeding as well, because it is now a liquid for the most part. So broadcast feeding, you can utilize this too, and this is going to be more on the zooplankton side. So it's going to be more on the meaty side, along with the vitamins and amino acids and stuff too. So you would use, basically for a well-established aquarium or a lot of different corals, all three of these are going to have their purpose, and this you can just broadcast feed around. Now the next way of feeding, and this is really important for increasing like your growth, and also corals like LPS tend to need more target feeding to have better growth, is now you can take this liquid and target feed. So this is where you're actually going to put it onto your coral. Now this usually, soft corals, unless for some reason you really want to increase their growth, even though they grow fast, this generally is better for, say, LPS and SPS if you need to. One particular coral that really does benefit or almost require it for like long-term health of spot feeding is Gonioporas. Especially if they're wild, they're going to require it even more. Fortunately, this is an aquacultured ORA one, so it does well even with minimal spot feeding. This thing started so tiny. It's been with us for, how long has the ORA build been? 2, 3?
2.5 years.
Yep.
At least.
So this one's been here. So when you are target feeding, say something like a Goniopora, you're going to take into your turkey baster. Now you don't want to like shoot it onto the tentacles, and then that's going to just cause it to close up without actually feeding. So you want to gently have it drop. And as you can see, it does have some little bit larger chunks that will settle and fall onto the coral.
So do not startle the coral. Feed the coral.
Yes. So this is naturally going to, when you have your flows off, have the particles go and kind of fall onto it. So the nice thing about this is it's a mix of really, really fine particles as well as a little bit larger. As you can see, those actually physically fall in, making it easier to land on a coral and actually sit on it while it consumes it. because corals do need a little bit of time to take food in. It's not an instant. And if you put something that's too lightweight, it won't settle on it. Or if it's too heavy, it'll fall off the coral before they have a chance to physically actually like close up and eat it.
I'll take a quick question.
Yeah.
Chris is asking real quickly, does Fido need refrigeration? And we do recommend refrigerating after you open it. Do you refrigerate it?
If it was like in my average home, I would definitely say so. But like here where we have more tanks and more corals and it's going to go a little bit faster, you probably don't need to, but always beneficial.
Yeah, for
So I would
like
always
long-term
say-
storage.
Yeah, I'd say always on the safer side to go ahead and refrigerate a Fido. It's not a live Fido, so it's not required.
Right.
But any liquid like that, you know, does technically get older once it's open. So you can see that Ghani doing his thing with feeding. And then all the stuff that you put in the tank here, as it settles on all of your different corals, they're gonna feed it on it as well. But I also wanna show this on, like over here. So a lot of your LPS don't have big mouths. So like spot feeding them, it has to be with a smaller particle like this and not with bigger chunks of like mysis and pellets and stuff. So I'm gonna show you our little Favia over here. Favias have pretty small little mouths. So these fine particles are gonna sit really nicely on the different heads and allow it to actually take the food in because they are slower eaters. And I'm just gonna throw some on a nice big leather coral because that'll make it happy, even though it's growing plenty fast.
Adam says, how do I get a Ghani to that size? I would recommend to Adam to seek out an ORA aquaculture Ghani.
Yeah, ORA is good because you're getting a really good started one. It's not from the wild, which are very hard to maintain. But also feeding. Like I said, Goniopores may live without special feeding, but they're not going to thrive. They're not going to grow. They're not going to be nearly as happy without that extra feeding. Broadcast feeding, target feeding, all of that. And if you're not willing to target feed and you have Ghani, put it somewhere that it's like in the direct flow of when you broadcast feed that the food goes by at first. So like gets the biggest amount of food being thrown in there. So that, see the Favia takes a while to eat. So with this sitting on there, it has a chance to have its time to actually feed because bigger chunks of stuff like mysis usually are going to get stolen off by something before it can actually consume it. And I'm going to throw some of this on this huge leather up here. Look at that. Soft corals don't need it because they generally feed well off the water column, but if you are trying to just grow your stuff a little bit faster,
Are all the
you
fish
can
hiding?
spot feed anything. I know this one's not very colorful, but I love his tentacles on it.
Like some like nice white tips, right?
Yeah, it does, but they're like super, they're not fluffy, that's not the right word, but it makes it look really, I don't know, textured, I guess, when it's fully open.
I like when all the pumps are off and everything looks like it's suspended in space
Yep.
or something. It's just kind of floating,
Everything spreads.
like zero gravity.
I look at the leather go, he's closing up. He's feeding. That's a pretty good size leather. He started out small too. Like I said, soft corals will grow pretty much no matter what you do with them as far as food, but you will definitely increase growth and color by making sure you add a variety of food choices into the aquarium.
So someone just asked about meaty foods. Are you jumping into that next?
That's not next, but it is on here. We got a cup of some mysis and krill here that we're gonna talk about. Our next one is good. LPS Superfood. So this is designed specifically for your LPS corals. And the reason for that is it is similar as far as what's in it, as far as like zooplankton and amino acids and all that stuff, but in a little pellet form. And this makes it easier to get it onto the tentacles and for LPS that have slightly larger mouths to consume it. So it packs more food directly to the coral. So, and they're not big pellets, which is great. So you can kind of go all the way from different favias up to bubbles and torches and stuff that have bigger mouths that can eat the meaty stuff. But this will give you a dry option. Even though it's like a little pellet form, take a little bit of water in with it so that you can take it up in your turkey baster or whatever it is. Turkey baster is your best friend. If you don't have one, go get one from the dollar store. These are going to help you so much for feeding, cleaning your rock. It's a great asset for an aquarium. So you can see here, I'm going to get a close up. Can you see? Just little pellets. So this is going to make it easy to feed your LPS. And like I said, you can use this on soft corals like mushrooms and stuff. So actually, we'll put some on the mushrooms here. So you got your favorite type of mushroom. You really want them sprouting some babies, growing fluffier. Spot feeding like this is going to be good. So while for LPS, it can be used on different types of corals too. So you'll see if over like the next minute or two, the mushrooms will actually kind of bloom up and around and travel those pellets down to its center mouth. All right, I'm going to show you with these here. So stuff like blastos that have a much slower feeding response. This is good because over here on the back, so these blastos here, they do have a feeding response, but it does take a while. They don't usually do it quickly. Can kind of drape it around, put it on kind of their sticky part or on the center. And this is gonna let it sit there without rolling off too easy and make it a lot easier to spot feed a coral like this. Whereas you feed it mysis or something meatier, a lot of times it's gonna fall off, or it takes so long for them to eat that you're leaving your powerheads the system down a lot longer than you probably wanna spend doing your spot feeding in the aquarium. Because generally I don't think most people wanna spend the next hour waiting for the corals to eat. So this definitely helps. You can see it's already starting to close up on that top one, because it's going to be a lot easier for that coral to consume these small pellets than big meaty chunks of stuff.
Sean Hendrick says everything, excuse me, is slow motion and saltwater patience is key. I always say nothing good happens fast in the saltwater aquarium.
That's true. That
Takes
is
time
true.
and patience.
So you can see the mushrooms starting to close up around the pellets here. You got your blastos doing it. And back to the food that we were using before. If you look at this favia, you can actually start to see it has really small feeder mouth and tentacles, but it's actually starting to close up pretty well around the Superfood, because the Superfood had those little bit of thicker chunks in it. But like these here would be a lot bigger for it to consume.
Brian D wants you to feed the GSP. Do you ever feed GSP? There's no need to because they spread so wildly.
Yeah,
fast,
I mean,
right?
you can definitely use the phytoplankton in the superfood, but I don't want it to grow any faster. It's like our daisy polyps and like those things. I don't want them to get any bigger, any faster than they are. So the green star polyps.
Oh, yeah.
That's my favorite coral, Keenan.
I
Yeah.
know. I didn't put the acronym together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the green star polyp.
So
But the
with
branching
these,
version, we still have some in the frag, right?
yeah, the frag
Yeah.
has a big rock of the branching version. This one is just the regular that made its way in here. So it's closing up really well. And for blastos, the red ones, those are very hard to target feed a lot of the time. So getting a good feeding response and actually being able to have them close up and feed within like 10, 15 minutes is really, really beneficial to them. They're gonna pop off so many more babies and be so much fluffier and happier with being spot fed than if they're just constantly broadcast feeding. They'll survive, but most LPS will not do as good without being spot fed. You're not gonna get the growth that you see and you're like wondering why other people's aquariums grow so much faster. It has to do with feeding. Nutrition for corals is just as important as the light you choose for them. So keep that in mind, that proper nutrition goes a long way, not just with fish, but also with your corals. So I'm gonna show these ones, so these LPS Superfood on our little hammer up here. So our little hologram kind of rainbow hammer. Nice thing with these pellets as well is great for hammers and torches and frog spawns because they fall into the tentacles really, really nicely and make it easy for it to take it into the head mouths and consume it that way.
Jess, are you feeding, this is a question from me, are you feeding more than you normally would on a given day?
Yes, yes, this is much more than would normally go through because I don't think you would really try and go and use every single food and spot feed every single coral at the same time. And you would do it more, definitely more specific amounts to each coral, but for demonstration purposes, we're kind of feeding everyone and everything just to give you some examples and show the feeding process. And we will, if you overfeed, so if you go in there and you're like, I'm gonna super feed my corals like crazy this week, go ahead, just do an extra water change or make sure you plan it. Usually, like if we're gonna do super heavy feeding, plan it to be a couple days before a big water change so that possible spike in like nitrates and phosphates is alleviated with the water change to kind of offset it if you're gonna go real crazy with your feeding. All right. The next one is the Meaty Food. So this is really only for very specific corals. It's not going to apply to a lot of them in your aquarium. And what we have here is, and it can be any meat food. So I got a mix of some Pacific plankton, which is like mysis, and then also little pieces of krill. This is only really going to be beneficial to larger LPS corals that have big tentacles or have big mouths, and then anemones. Anemones are another one that's going to be needing this meatier food. Now, this is not absolutely necessary for most of your LPS. Using things like the pellets and stuff is going to be sufficient, but this is like that huge boost of food that's going to be really good for growth and being able to put a lot of food into it a lot easier. So in this aquarium, for example, ones that can really take some bigger food is going to be our bubble coral here, and then that torch coral. Almost no one else am I really going to bother with this kind of feeding. Actually, I might go for the acan because he's got his feeder tentacles out. He's noticed all the food in the water column, and he's like, I'm hungry. I don't know if you can zoom in and see his little feeder tentacles around his mouth. But he is so open with those feeder tentacles that he will physically grab mysis or something bigger and be able to consume it. If they do not have their feeder tentacles out, don't even try because it's usually going to fall right off of them. So I'm going to start with our little acan down here and see how it does. But the same thing with this acan, you could easily take that LPS Superfood and go that route. Now when these bigger chunks, a lot of times I say rinse it beforehand just because you're going to get a lot of this.
All the dusty stuff.
Yeah, well, don't mind that. Okay. So the goal is with something like this is you want to put it right onto those little feeder tentacles. So those little clear ring of tentacles are actually pretty nice and sticky. That's how they catch their food. So you want to gently put it on there. If you put too much pressure, then that coral is going to squeeze in, thinking danger, and you're going to have no feeding happening to this particular coral. So all along the side here are little babies that you can get
Lots of
into.
questions coming in. I don't know if you want me to take them here while we're going or we wait.
Yeah, take them now because I'm not taking them over there.
Okay.
Sorry for the shakiness. It's getting heavy.
All right, so that one got there. So we're going to take some of these other ones. So like example, this bubble coral. And we can look back on that acan in a minute or two and you'll see that it's taken a lot of that to it. All right, there we go. Now usually if you're going to do heavy spot feeding like this, using that broadcast food first is going to actually bring a feeding response out on a lot of your corals. So on this guy, this bubble, you see all those little tiny tentacles sticking out? That's his little feeder tentacles and also sweeper tentacles to sting anybody if he so chooses. And that's gonna let you know like it's ready to eat. It's more likely to take in this food that we're giving it pretty quickly and not have as much fall off and kind of be wasted along the aquarium. I have to say, I like feeding this aquarium a lot better than the frag because we don't have big tanks stealing everyone's food. Beware, if you have big hungry fish in your aquarium, they're going to impede this process quite a bit
True.
and be trouble. Also shrimp.
Are there not many fish in this tank currently?
Not too many, not big ones. They're very like shy, like more like less aggressive eaters. So they don't really try to start any trouble. They might take a piece here or there, but it's like firefish and that kind of stuff. Like they're pretty chill.
Justin says, unlimited is the best budget for a starter tank. It's a joke.
I mean, that's the way to go if you can, for sure.
So Bongo is asking that. So what's the good starter budget for a reef tank? Bongo, go with the largest tank that you can
Yeah, we're gonna go with the little
put
torch coral
together
over
in
here.
its entirety, including livestock.
That torch
or
is getting a
at
little
least
chunk of
rock and everything.
No. Nope, see, he got it. I want to try and move it up to his mouth a little bit better. So LPS have some pretty nice sticky tentacles in order to grab food because they don't have anyone doing this for them in the wild. They're catching what comes by for survival, basically. So bubble corals, torches, Blastos acans can be pretty good for this depending on their size. And actually mushrooms will eat big chunks of food too because they actually have a pretty good sized mouth. He's gonna lose this piece of krill. The crab's gonna get it. But you can see when you go back, check the acans and you'll see that they have pretty much closed up around the mysis completely. And they'll stay closed up until they're actually in their mouth and going through and eaten. And then they'll open up back to normal. And you'll notice after you spot feed something, when it opens back up, it is much fluffier and much happier after that feeding.
Just like that, we're back.
We're back.
The first live feeding we've done in a while.
It has been quite a while, actually. So, feed your corals. Really is important. You're gonna have that aquarium that you look at and you're like, why are their corals growing so much faster? Gotta feed your corals. I mean, other things like water parameters and lighting do have an effect too. But I think coral feeding is highly overlooked. People think I have to feed my fish, I have to do this, I have to dose my alkalinity and my calcium. But the feeding, I don't think enough people put focus on what kind of corals do you have, what are their feeding needs, and are they getting enough of it? So we keep such clean environments. Like our goal in a reef tank is low nitrates, low phosphates, we're skimming heavy, we're filtering everything out with socks and rollers and stuff. So all that natural food that would be just throwing around into the ocean is not just happening in your aquarium regularly. So you have to add that food in there to give them the nutrition and energy, basically, to grow, reproduce, get bigger for you. So hopefully that helped people kind of jump into understanding feeding and what you might need. Remember, this is not how much food you should put in there on a regular feeding basis. This is for demonstration purposes.
So we are giving away some $100 gift cards this evening, which we do this every stream.
Yep.
So it always pays to watch Waterbox Live. If you guys haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. It helps us out tremendously. Gets more people seeing these videos, gets more people educated on aquariums. So
Are we doing any more questions? Are we moving on to?
I think we're going to
Gift
move on
cards?
to gift cards, right?
Yeah, just give me a couple minutes here.
Okay.
So again, you guys, if you didn't tune into Inspire in March, we launched our full. She sees some funny comments.
Yeah. I don't usually get to
launched-
read comments.
we launched a full chemistry supplement coral nutrition line. So check it out. What Jess was using over there is our own coral foods. You can pick them up individually on our website, or you can also buy bundles with them as well. They are available now.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say that Michael says GSP didn't get fed. Big sad.
if you don't know, that's my favorite coral.
It is your favorite coral, and it also will take over your
It probably,
aquarium.
like-
So don't give it more. Don't give it more energy. It doesn't need more energy. It does its own thing.
People are probably thinking that's a coral that most people do not want in their tank.
It's your
But
favorite.
I'll
You love it.
I'll take it all.
You love it. So
And Tran, a good friend of ours, gave us a branching green star polyp, which I absolutely love.
yeah.
I saw it in San Diego for the first time years ago, and I thought for sure it was actually GSP just growing up like a dead acropora. And it wasn't.
No, it grows its own little mat, because like regular GSP just grows a kind of thick mat along rocks and any surfaces that it can get a hold of. This one actually, it takes its own mat and just like forms together to be
Yeah, like
like
a-
branches, but they're not hard at all. It's just that soft star polyp mat that goes up into branch form. It's very cool.
I'd love to know the history of that coral. Like, where did it come from? Did
Why does it
Did
do
that
it?
happen in nature, or did it happen in a tank?
I don't know. I don't know. Don't want to be confined to
Nick's
rocks.
Waterbox mystery.
All right, we are ready with some gift cards?
Ready.
All right. Ready for some two $100 Waterbox gift card winners?
Let's roll. Oh, yeah. Michael Mahoney and Brian D. Congratulations, you guys. Again, email winners@waterboxaquariums.com. They'll get you hooked up with your gift cards. And we do that every week. We're always giving away some Waterbox monies.
Yep. Pays to watch live. You get to see cool stuff like coral feeding, learn some stuff, get your questions answered on the stream. And also, I mentioned when you email in as you're the winner, please say if you're from the US or Canada, so I can issue it correctly without having to email back and
We need
forth.
to add that there so I don't forget it every week.
Yeah, I'll just say it. And then in the morning, I'll get that sent over to you. So it's fun. I like doing hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's very educational and fun to watch. So hopefully you've learned some stuff today, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We will not be here next week, but we will be back on the 21st. So
We'll see you then.
see you guys.
Thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And to learn more about Waterbox, visit waterboxaquariums.com.
We're live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
I